Hello, Adam.
Hello, Michael.
Adam, you are a philosophical practitioner from Sweden. And as far as I know, you are working at a museum with philosophical practice. So how can I imagine what you're doing there?
Well, I'm working as a philosophical practitioner at the Museum of Modern Art in Stockholm. And I've been working at the museum for quite some time. I've worked as an art educator for around 2 years. But recently I had this initiative that I wanted to work more with the dialogue at the museum. And I have been working for a couple of years with philosophy with children in Sweden and also in Nepal. And I felt that there was a really interesting context to work with the dialogue in a philosophical way, and also do it in this context of the art museum. So I made an initiative just a few months ago, so this is a brand new thing. And there are two different ways I work with the philosophy there. The first one is that schools and preschools, they can book me. Right now it's only me who can do it. They can come to the museum and they choose a theme that they are interested in, and they can choose between 3 different themes. And they come to the museum with the class or the group, and we have a dialogue in front of the artwork, and maybe sometimes we go down into the atelier, where we can work more with the creativity and using different techniques. We have beautiful 2 big rooms where we can really be creative and paint, work with clay, and this is a way of how we can maybe express the philosophy and go from the cognitive way of doing it into a more embodied and maybe aesthetical response to this reflective mode. But that's one way, and the other way it's a kind of a project, and I call it right now Existential Philosophy at Moderna Museet, and I also call it as the art museum as a cathedral. So because I see that there are many people in the society, and they have a lot of questions, maybe anxiety. They have no one really to talk to about ethical problems, existential dilemmas, and just what it is to be me, what it is to be a human. And therefore I wanted to create a space in the museum, and so this is kind of a secular cathedral in the art context, which is the other way. So this is basically two ways I work with philosophy at the museum.
If I understand you right, then it's not only what you explained before, it's not only that you're doing dialogues and doing the talking part, but it's also like the more, you called it embodied part, or if I understand you right, that means that you're not only talking and dialoguing, but the expressions are also more creative, which are the expressions in that dialogue are more creative. Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, the thing that I'm interested in when I studied philosophy myself, I felt that it could easily become something that is kind of cut off from the rest of your being, the rest of the body, and that it's such a cognitive, analytical way of doing things. And I wanted to get away from this, and that's how I got into the existential philosophy and phenomenology, where I feel that there's much more focus on ethical aspects and interpretation. I'm very much inspired by Nietzsche also, and Karl Jaspers also, his idea of philosophizing, and that you can philosophize in different ways, in silence, and many different ways. And when I use the artwork, it's I don't feel that philosophy is only about if we put it in the context of the dialogue, that it's only about the verbal area or the thinking area, what this might be. I feel that we can use art, we can use this as a way of expressing ourselves, our ideas, and also getting new perspectives in our own thought, and we can also make it into something that is a lived philosophy, not just the theoretical or intellectualized way of doing philosophy, which I think is important.
You also mentioned before that you worked as a philosophical practitioner in Nepal at a school.
Yeah.
Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, this was actually almost the first time that I started working as a practitioner, so it was quite an adventure for me, because I started working at a preschool in Sweden, in Stockholm, and it's called Philosophiska, and it means in Swedish to be philosophical. So I was very excited to be able to go to the school that they opened in Nepal and to be able to meet these children. And it's kind of a special project because it's 60 children, all from preschool up to around 14 years old, and we pay for their school. We have a cooperation in Nepal as well, but it's a kind of a cooperation between Sweden and Nepal. I'm not really good at Nepali, so for me it was a challenge, just this language dimension of how can I be able to communicate at all with these children who can't really use the English language. And I'm not a native English-speaking person either, so it was an extra dimension. But after a few sessions at the school in Kathmandu, in the capital of Nepal, I felt that the language barrier wasn't a real problem, and we started to get a really good contact, and they enjoyed making their own questions, used a lot of Socratic dialogue techniques, and we worked for 1 month in the school in two classes. And I felt that this was totally new, because my experience was that in Nepal that they have a really authoritative way of teaching, and it's a lot about learning and it's not that much responding, and it's not much creating your own view. It's kind of, it's a different way. I'm not saying it's better or worse or anything, but so I felt that there was a transformation in the dynamic in the class that was really helpful for them, and I had I get a really special contact with the children after my month there, mainly because of this Socratic dialogue and what it opened up in the classroom.
If you summarize that in a few sentences, what was it that you learned as a philosophical practitioner when being in a different country and culture, working with Socratic dialogue?
What this was that I learned?
Yes, something that you say, well, this is something that I learned because I was working as a philosophical practitioner in a different culture.
Well, when you are in a foreign culture, you as you do in the dialogue, in my view, you do something unnatural. You transcend your natural way of being, and doing it in a context of Nepal and Kathmandu, which was really, really different from Stockholm, where I live. That was, I think, somehow it helped me to gain a distance to my own practice, my own prejudice, and maybe I had a more humble entrance into the dialogue and understanding the children, their experience and their view and their arguments, and so. But it's a good question. If it's special impact, if it's affected the whole dialogue when it comes to a foreign context.
I would like to thank you for the interview. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you.